Multiplying and dividing integers, Chapter 2, Lesson 3. Trust me, you're going to find multiplying and dividing integers to be much simpler than adding or subtracting. There's just a few rules to remember. So in multiplying integers, the product of two integers with different signs is negative. So if you have a negative and a positive, you're always going to wind up with a negative. So this should be negative 15. And then the product of two integers with the same sign is always positive, even if they're two negatives. So negative 2 times negative 6 is going to be a positive 12. So let's just practice. 7 times the negative 9. Positive times the negative, automatically you should know your answer is going to be negative. Then you just do the math. 7 times 9 is 63. Number 2, 4 times negative 9. I have one negative, so I know my answer will be negative 36. Negative 4 times a negative 7. A negative times a negative is always a positive. So 4 times 7 is 28. And lastly, number 4, negative 5 times negative 5. 2 negatives equals a positive. When we're dealing with multiplying multiple integers, we're just going to go 2 at a time. So we're going to use the information we just learned, that a negative times a positive is a negative. And then anytime we have 2 positives or 2 negatives, it's going to be positive. First, I would do here 3 times negative 5, which is where they get negative 15. And then they did negative 15 times negative 6. 2 negatives equals a positive, which is where they got this 90 here. Okay. Or method 2, they just automatically multiplied the 2 negatives first to get that positive 30. And then did 3 times 30 to get 90. It's the same exact answer because that's the commutative property of multiplication, that the order doesn't matter. So we'll do number 5 with method 1. First, we'll do 3 times negative 5 to get negative 15 times negative 4. Negative 15 times negative 4. The negative tells me my answer is positive. And 15 times 4 is 60. Method 2 for number 6, multiply both the negatives first. Negative 7 times negative 2 is a positive 14. So then I have 5 times 14, which would equal 70. Here we have a real world or word problem using multiplication. So the altitude of a hot air balloon was changing at a rate of 12 feet per second. That's a rate. Find the change in altitude of the hot air balloon after 6 seconds. So if it's moving negative 12 feet per 1 second, we're going to multiply it times 6 to get an answer. Negative times a positive equals negative 72 feet. Let's look at number 7. During an experiment, the temperature of a compound fell 2 degrees Celsius every minute. It fell, so that means it's a negative 2 degrees. Find the total change in temperature of a compound after every 9 minutes. So that tells us we're multiplying it times 9. I have a negative times a positive here, so I know my answer is going to be negative. 2 times 9 is 18. So the total change in temperature of the compound is negative 18 degrees Celsius. The rules for dividing integers are the same as multiplying. The quotient of 2 integers with the same sign is always positive. So a positive divided by a positive will be positive, and a negative divided by a negative will also be positive. Just like in this example, negative 27 divided by negative 3 is 9. Anytime you're dividing a negative by a positive or a positive by a negative, your answer will be negative. So let's do the examples. Negative 40 divided by negative 5. That's 2 negatives. I know my answer is going to be positive. So 40 divided by 5 is 8. Number 11, a negative divided by a positive. That automatically tells me my answer is negative. Negative 36 divided by 9 would be a -4. Number 12, positive divided by a negative. Again, one negative, that's my clue. It's my answer's negative. And 32 divided by 8 is 4. And number 13, -49 divided by -7. Two negatives is positive. So 49 divided by 7 is 7. Let's do this word problem here. In 200 seconds, a raindrop fell 5,000 feet to the ground. So find its change in height per second. So it's falling to the ground, so it's going down. So it fell -5,000 feet in 200 seconds. So I'm doing -5,000 divided by a +200. We know my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to cross out these zeros here and just do -50 divided by 2, and I get -25 feet per second. So that's it for this lesson. I just want to remind you that the rules as far as a positive, this is something you could add in your notebook. A positive times or divided by a positive equals a positive. A negative multiplied or divided by a negative equals a positive. And then a positive multiplied or divided by a negative will be negative. And a negative multiplied or divided by a positive will be negative. Please don't try and apply these properties to addition or subtraction. They are not true. These only work with multiplication and division.